Your public retirement is becoming more expensive and more complex. The technical summary is simple. The state pension system is charging more today, while promising higher benefits in the distant future. Recent reforms increased the income replacement target. In the past, the plan aimed to replace roughly 1/4 of a worker's income. Now the system is gradually moving toward replacing about 1/3 of average earnings. To finance this increase, a two-tier contribution structure was created. This change directly affects those earning above the national average. Taxable income ceilings have risen again. The first contribution tier now exceeds the $70,000 mark, while a second tier applies an additional contribution on income up to roughly $85,000. For most workers, the base contribution is close to 6%, but those in the upper bracket face an extra 4% on that additional income. As a result, the maximum annual contribution for an employee can approach $5,000. These increases have been phased in gradually since the end of the last decade. Earlier this year, benefits were adjusted by about 2% to keep pace with inflation. Lower-income workers remain protected by an exemption on the first $3,500 earned. On paper, the trade-off appears reasonable. Higher contributions today in exchange for potentially higher benefits decades from now. But this promise depends on a very long timeline. To receive the full projected benefit, most workers must contribute for roughly 40 years. And this is where the deeper issue begins. The entire pension system was designed in an era when people lived only a short time after retiring. My grandfather retired at 65 in 1972 and passed away just 7 years later. The pension system was built for his reality, not ours, where a healthy 65-year-old today might easily collect checks for 25 years. Today, the demographic reality has changed dramatically. Life expectancy in many developed countries now ranges between 80 and 84 years. Pension plans originally assumed retirees would draw benefits for about 10 years. Now the system must often support them for 20 or even 25 years. Meanwhile, the number of workers supporting each retiree is shrinking. In the 1960s, contribution rates were below 4%. Today, that burden already exceeds 11% when combining different pension components. By 2060, projections suggest there may be only 2 active workers supporting each retiree. As demographer Philip Longman puts it, the demographic transition is the most powerful force shaping the long-term future of the welfare state, a force that squeezes government finances from both ends, fewer payers in and more payers out. This demographic shift places permanent pressure on contribution rates and government finances. There is also another detail many people overlook. Public pension benefits are not tax-free. The same government that pays your pension also taxes that income, which means the final net amount in retirement is often significantly lower than expected. For immigrants or professionals who start contributing later in life, the situation can be even more challenging. To qualify for maximum benefits, the system typically requires decades of residency or full contributions. Someone arriving in their 30s or 40s will receive only a partial share. And if you plan to retire early, another problem appears. The official pension age usually begins around 60 to 65. Anyone stopping work earlier faces a financial gap. This gap can easily last 10 to 15 years with no state support at all. That is why relying exclusively on government retirement programs creates significant financial risk. The mathematics of compound interest remains the most powerful alternative. Investing $1,000 a month starting at age 30 can potentially grow to nearly $1.4 million by age 60. But waiting until age 49, as I've seen with many late bloomer investors, changes the equation dramatically. Even contributing $5,000 a month may produce a final amount that reaches only about 70% of that total. The secret is not a special investment strategy, is simply time. Or as Warren Buffett summarized his own success, it's only necessary to do a very few things right in your life, so long as you don't do too many things wrong. And starting early is the first of those very few things. This is why, after years of watching retirees struggling solely reliant on public pensions, I'm convinced the government check should be your floor, not your ladder. It should be treated as a secondary layer of security. Meanwhile, the institutions managing these pension funds operate on a massive scale. CPP Investments, for example, manages hundreds of billions of dollars. Despite its size, critics like the Libertarian Competitive Enterprise Institute point to its high active management costs. The organization employs more than 2,000 people. The Globe and Mail estimates average employee cost at $500,000 each. Annual operating expenses and payments to external managers exceed $4 billion. In recent performance reports, the fund delivered returns slightly above 9%. However, the reference market rose close to 11% during the same period, as reported by the Canadian press. That difference represents billions of dollars in missed returns. At the same time, senior executives still received multi-million-dollar bonuses. CEO John Graham received performance compensation exceeding $5 million. Large institutional funds argue that their global diversification and long-term strategy justify these costs. But individual investors today have access to extremely efficient alternatives. Passive ETFs from global providers like Vanguard or iShares charge fees as low as 0.05%. Over a lifetime, the difference between paying 1% and paying a fraction of that fee can translate into hundreds of thousands of dollars. Tax-efficient accounts also play a critical role. Vehicles such as TFSA and RRSP allow capital to grow either tax-free or tax-deferred. This dramatically improves long-term compounding. Despite criticism regarding costs and management, actuarial reports still show that the public pension system remains financially stable. The chief actuary projects the system will remain sustainable for at least 75 years, a forecast that feels eerily reminiscent of the 1994 Sweden reform that introduced its famous automatic brake. The fund has grown into one of the largest pension pools in the world. CPP Investments now reports over $777 billion in assets. Unlike the pure pay-as-you-go systems in places like the UK, which Adam Smith Institute fellows rightly call visibly straining, our model uses partial capitalization, investing today's surpluses to pre-fund tomorrow's promises. Investment returns are expected to fund nearly 40% of future benefits. The rules governing the system are also difficult to change. Any major reform requires approval from 2/3 of the provinces, representing 2/3 of the population. For a young professional contributing at the maximum level, the projected benefit could reach roughly $3,800 per month in retirement. And this amount is indexed to inflation, preserving purchasing power. This makes public pension function like an inflation-protected annuity. Replicating such a structure privately would be extremely expensive. The smartest strategy, therefore, is not choosing between public pension and private investing. It is combining both. Use the guaranteed base provided by the state as your financial foundation, and build your true long-term wealth through disciplined private investment. After watching a close relative lose nearly half his savings in the dot-com crash, yet still pay his bills because that boring government check kept arriving, I learned something. Smart money isn't about picking sides. Use the state pension as your concrete floor, then build your real wealth on top with private investments. One supports the other. That's the whole game. Subscribe if you want more analysis like this, and comment below, what financial topics should we break down next?